It's 10 p.m. here in Singapore. So, golfers, thanks for joining us. I'm joined by my friend and colleague, Rob Cheney, who's a fellow stack and tilt instructor. I know you guys certainly have already getting some questions coming in already about stack and tilt, so it's going to be great to hopefully go through some questions from you guys. I've got some questions that I'm going to ask Rob as well. I've got a list of questions that I want to go through with you, mate. But thanks for joining me, mate. It's great to have you on, and a friend as well, which is even better. So thanks, mate.
Pleasure, mate. Absolute pleasure. It'll be fun. I'm looking forward to it. We'll have a good chat.
Yeah, it should be good.
Stack and tilt.
I would like to mention before we start that Rob has just recently been awarded top 75 international instructor worldwide, voted by Golf Digest. So congratulations, mate.
Thank you, mate. Thank you.
Famous.
Very kind.
Cool. So I think we'll get going. Is that right? I've got a few questions that I want to ask you. Hopefully the guys here in the chat will get some questions going as well. But we'll start with one of the questions on my list. So really just wanted to find out about how you got into playing golf. We're not going to talk about stack and tilt just yet. I just want to ask how you got into playing. What was your first experience as a youngster?
Yeah, I really picked up the game I was 9 or 10 years old. My dad played. He wasn't very good, but he played. And it was one of those things that I kind of just went up to the driving range with him one time and I kind of got into it. I was quite sporty as a kid. I was playing football, cricket, rugby, tennis. I played a bit of basketball. I mean, I was pretty sporty as a youngster. So for me, it was just picking up a club and having a go. And it was fun. I wasn't very good either when I started. I was pretty terrible, actually. But yeah, I kind of got into it from there and found a few friends who played. We went to the driving range together. And I guess it really kind of kicked off for me in the early secondary school kind of years, like 11, 12 years old, that kind of thing. So I met some friends at school who played at the local club, and we'd go out every weekend, we'd play. And then that led on to me joining a private members club. I grew up in Stevenage in Hertfordshire. I was a member of the public course there to start with, and then I moved to a private club up the road called Nebworth Golf Club. That's really where I spent a big chunk of my childhood, really, from probably 12, 13 years old to 20, 21, 22 years old, probably 10 years of my life there as a junior member. And then as an assistant professional, did my training there.
What handicap did you get down to when you turned pro?
The lowest I got was like a 1. I was, ultimately, when you look back, you think you're quite good you're big fish in a small pond, I suppose, and you think you're okay and you can play this game. But, ultimately I was never great. I had some good times when I started to play in my early 20s professionally and full time. I had a few decent results, but, ultimately was never good enough to play professionally and make any money from it. So, but it was good experience. I think it's how most of us get into golf coaching is.
Yeah. Did you have lessons when you started, when you were a kid?
Yeah, no, I really didn't. I think I remember attending some group stuff at the public course that I was playing at, and that was. Yeah, I don't really remember getting much coaching per se. It was more just kind of guided practice. Yeah. So I didn't really take a lot of lessons. I figured a lot of it out for myself. As I said, I was quite sporty. I practiced a lot, but I never really understood what I was doing. I never really understood the swing. I found it's funny. My old boss, very good friend of mine, Gary Parker, who was my first boss and my real mentor to start with. We used to film my swing years ago. We're going back to sort of, I guess, early 90s, like mid 90s. Is that when you had hair? Yeah, had some. I've never had a lot. Not like you. You're greedy.
Got too much.
We used to film the swing on the old days on those big camcorders, and he was clearing out the pro shop last year, where I used to work, and he found this old VHS tape of my swing. And my goodness, I posted it on the Stack and Tilt instructor page for just to be completely annihilated and criticized about how bad it was. And if I can
I
find
remember.
it, I think it's on my phone actually. I'll try and post it on my Instagram or something later if anyone wants to see it. It was horrendous. So, you know, I think I got good because I was quite sporty. I watched and copied a lot of my heroes. You know, I grew up in the Nick Faldo era.
Yeah.
And then, you know, I got good enough to be competitive at amateur level, county level, played okay at my home club, and then thought, oh, you know what, this is fun. I'll try and do it for a living, but it didn't quite work out. But that's fine.
So you tried to play as an assistant pro. Is that how you got into coaching, or?
Played a bit as an assistant. I was in the East region of the PGA, which you'd be familiar with because you're from Essex and I'm Hertfordshire. So I played a lot of East region stuff, pro-ams in particular, then the Order of Merit events. And then once I finally got qualified, I'd already sort of decided to take a year or two out to try and play. Good friend of mine helped me raise some cash. I had a couple of members at the club that were very supportive of me, helped me with like paying for a car, paying for a few tournaments. So I had the opportunity to go and play probably for a year without really needing to worry too much. But then that's baptism of fire. You quickly realize like how good, even that, what's that, 20 years ago, like how good mini tours even were back then. And it's got even better in the last 10, 15 years.
It's tough, isn't it, for the youngsters, especially it gets harder every year, I think. The standard goes up and it's expensive as well. I don't think people realize how expensive it is to enter these tournaments, to pay for all your expenses and just to try and make it. I think it's really tough to do, and obviously need a lot of money and have to be exceptionally good at it to make it.
Yeah, you do, especially nowadays. I mean, some of the quality of the youngsters I see can play the game now. It's frightening how far they hit the ball and stuff. So yeah, I'm glad I didn't end up down that path, I think.
So what sort of age did you start coaching?
I suppose that would have been when I started doing my PGA training, which would have been around, I left school. I left school as soon as I finished my GCSEs.
Yeah.
And I finished, I think my last exam was on like the Friday. And I started work full-time with Gary at Nebworth on the Monday. I literally had a weekend and that was it, straight into full-time work. So what would I have been, 16, I suppose? And then you start doing, you know, general pattern that I used to see was you'd do, the new kid would do the junior coaching, do the group coaching on a Saturday morning, you know, help the kids. And then off the back of that, you might pick up a few individual lessons with the parents or a few of the members. So it was a gradual sort of move into a bit of coaching around 16, 17 years old.
Yeah, sounds very similar to my path, actually. Similar type of thing. Starts off with the juniors and then you start to get a few adults and sort of grows from there, doesn't it? So what sort of led you into stack and tilt? Were you coaching for a number of years before you become an instructor?
Sorry, mate, say that again. My earpods ran out of battery, so I'm on the other. I can hear you now. Go ahead and ask
boy, mate. This happened last week. So what led you into the path of stack and tilt? Were you coaching a number of years before you led down that path? How did that come about?
Oh no, can't hear him. Hang on.
You need to get you some headphones, mate. You need some backup ones.
All right, we're good.
Old school.
I can hear you again. Sorry about that.
Old school ones you don't need to charge. Just plug them in.
Just been on that call for the last 2 hours.
Yeah, so guys, before we carry on, I just have to say thanks again to Rob. Tonight it's quite late here in Singapore. It's coming up to 10 past 10. We've already done 2 hours of Zoom calling with our guys and colleagues at Golf Tech. So now we're carrying on with this YouTube chat. So hopefully I won't keep you all night, mate. It's getting late here in Singapore, but it gives us a good chance to connect with different people around the world. I know people in the UK that are watching, in Europe, and hopefully in the States as well. So yeah, the question I was asking just a second ago was really how how did you get led down the path of stack and tilt? Was there something that happened in your coaching career that led you down that path? Or so I think that's quite an interesting topic, because I think everyone's path into stack and tilt was maybe slightly different.
Yeah, very much so. Yeah, huge sort of moment for me was meeting a guy called James Ridyard, who many people who follow golf instruction on social media will be familiar with. James is now very much a short game sort of expert. James lived very close to where I was in the UK geographically. By that time, I was teaching up at a driving range in Bedfordshire. James lived very close, used to come down and use the driving range for his own practice. And at the time, James worked for TrackMan. He was one of the first people to work for TrackMan in Europe. And he was sort of demonstrating this new machine that was sort of a brand new product in the golf industry. But at the same time, James was really responsible for bringing Mike and Andy to the UK for the first time. So James had gone out to America to meet them. He brought them back to the UK, and he'd set up some seminars and group coaching days with the guys, with Andy and Mike. And ultimately, that was how I got involved. I just got chatting to James on the driving range one day.
How long ago was this?
2009, 2010, maybe, something like that. And it was a real light bulb moment for me. You know, I think I was talking to Steve Giuliano on Instagram the other day. We had a chat and we were talking about coaching sort of mentors and what things that changed your belief system in coaching. And I think, you know, the PGA qualification that I left with in terms of being able to teach is I'm not sure what it looks like now, but it was very insufficient in terms of really giving you a system or a structure which to teach from. I think the fundamentals were pretty poor, and you really were left with no great system of diagnosing players' faults and having any kind of framework from which to work within and help people. So you were really kind of just, there was no continuity to anything you did. And I found myself teaching, thinking, you know, I had this set of fundamentals in my head. I had a few key drills that I'd probably use, but I honestly didn't really understand how it all fit together.
Yeah.
And I wasn't comfortable that I wasn't helping people quickly enough, and sometimes I wasn't helping people at all. And when James started talking to me about the three fundamentals, it was literally like a light bulb, that light bulb moment that people talk about.
Yeah.
It was like, my God, that makes so much sense. Why wouldn't you measure someone's ball striking ability by their ability to hit the ground in the same place? That connects all good golfers across the world. That is the piece that everybody does well. Despite all of these different looking swings, everybody who's any good does that. So yeah, that for me was...
I think a lot more coaching is definitely geared towards that nowadays. The contact point, I would say in recent years, I watch a lot of stuff on YouTube and various online content. Certainly, I think that's really seen now as really important part of playing good golf. I think people realise that. And like yourself, I was sort of first came across like the low point of the swing and how important that is from watching Mike and Andy. And I think that's obviously the first fundamental of playing golf and playing golf to a high standard. And it's the way you measure the best golfers. I think it's pretty clear if you took a group of golfers and their ability to hit the ground in the same spot, you could pretty much determine how good they are at golf and what sort of level handicap they are just by watching them do that test. But I think that was something that was not really highlighted as important as when I sort of learned the PGA style of coaching. I was like yourself, I did my PGA probably 10, 15 years ago, and they still use the old theory of the club path started the ball and the face curved it or whatever it was. And it was obviously TrackMan came around and things have changed in recent years. You mentioned earlier about James and TrackMan and things like that. I think that's definitely changed a lot of coaches and theories in golf, the technology that's been brought in.
Yeah, for sure.
So you met James Ridyard, did you meet Mike and Andy when they were over in the UK?
Yeah, so I think, so where that went from there was, I wanted to meet them. I think I might get the timeline slightly wrong, but Mike and Andy used to come over every year to the UK and do the Belfry Day.
Yeah.
The one-day kind of instructional training day that they do for PGA members. And again, James used to sort of organise that. And I just made sure I was on the next one of those they did. And because, I got to meet them, I got to drive up in the car with them, I got to kind of really get to chat to both of them. It was just, a great sort of introduction for me. I was able to pick their brains on a 2-hour car journey up to Birmingham and a two-hour car journey back, which was brilliant. And from there, I mean, those people who have followed Stack and Tilt and are familiar with Andy Plummer in any way, shape or form will know that he's probably one of the most generous guys in the business in terms of his time. And he's so good about answering questions and just wanting to help. So I just found myself picking his brains as much as I could, really, while I could. And then I just continued to go to the trainings that they did, the seminars that they did. That I went to the very first instructor training that they did in the UK, which was again held in Bedford. James hosted that. I can't remember when that was, maybe 2010, 11, something like that, 2012. I'm not 100% sure, but I was there with a good number of other coaches who you'd know and recognise from the network. And then things just kind of continued from there. And I just got more and more involved. And
so once you sort of you done your network training and became authorised instructor, did you change your coaching straight away? How did your students respond to that? I think that was one of the difficult things I had when I started as I came aboard with the Stack and Tilt system. As soon as you communicate that to your members, students you work with, sometimes that can put people off, and they can, because they've heard that Stack and Tilt is no good or whatever. Did you change your coaching straight away, or did you gradually sort of implement changes, or how did it affect your coaching style?
Well, I think I tried to change quickly. I'm not 100% sure if I don't recall kind of drawing a line and saying, okay, now I teach this versus this. One of the biggest things I remember kind of feeling when I first got involved was, wow, this is incredible. This is definitely going to help my coaching. It's going to help golfers in front of me get better. But there's so much to learn. Okay, I've been to trainings now for 10 years. I continue to go to trainings every year, and I still learn new stuff. The implementation of the concept, it takes longer for you to understand than just understanding weight forward. I mean, that's unfortunately it gets boiled down to that a lot of the time. But when you start teaching it and you tell someone to put their weight forward and they put their weight forward in the wrong way, now they start hitting down on it too much. They start slicing balls. They start taking really deep divots, and you don't understand as a coach which part of the system, which part of the toolbox you need to go to help that person. You haven't helped them. You've probably just made them worse, and that's because you've grasped onto this one kind of piece of it that you think, oh my God, that makes sense. I'm going to tell everyone to put their weight on their front foot, and then they're going to hit the ball great. Well, unfortunately, human beings interpret that instruction differently. So some people, you'll tell them to do it and they'll do it perfectly, and you'll think, oh, this is great, this is magic. And then the next person you'll tell to put their weight forward, they kind of go like this, chop down across the ball, and you're standing there watching them shank the ball or whatever, and you're like, oh, that wasn't what I wanted them to do. So it was gradual for me, because I felt like I needed to take time to understand how it all fitted together, and that takes a number of years, I think, to be good at that.
I think that's a good point. I've done a recent series on the 10 words. I think I love that part of the Stack and Tilt system where you've got the 10 words, but like you say, there's a lot more detail to the system. And I think that's one of the best things about it is that you can keep it simple for certain golfers of certain level, but then at the same time, you can delve into it quite deeper for a different type of golfer that you're coaching. I think that's one of the best parts of the system, that there's layers to it. And like you say, it does take time. And I think that's where people are quite quick to criticize the system and disregard it, probably because they're doing it in the wrong way. They may be taking one piece of it, or they've heard one instructor say keep their weight forward, and they do that. It doesn't work for them, and they disregard it. And I think that's a good point, that anyone that does want to learn the system, I think it's important that you do get in contact with an authorized instructor. I think that's really important.
Yeah,
So,
I agree completely. I think the network training for an instructor starts with 1 day of training, and at the end of that, there's exams, there's things they need to be able to do. But the idea that you could be a competent stack and tilt instructor after one training session or even 2 training sessions is ridiculous. You need to go and shadow instructors who've been in the system for a long time. That would be the best thing you could do. Go and find someone close to you who knows what they're talking about, authorized instructor, and they'll help you. That's what I would say. If you're an instructor trying to get into this, that's what I would have done. And I've been fortunate enough to help a few people that are now in the network come out and spend some time with me when I was in Portugal. And there's nothing I enjoy doing more actually than helping new instructors get involved, because what this did for me from an instruction point of view, I feel that I want to reciprocate and pay that forward to other people, because I was that coach who was a bit lost, didn't really know where to go. And the golf coaching world can be a daunting place at times. We're all on our own. We're all teaching. That's where most of us come from. We've got to find our own students, teach our own students, kind of put this box around us and not kind of share too much and not be too, not give away too much. And actually the network of stack and tilt instructors is by far the most valuable part of it all, to be honest with you. It's a phenomenal group of instructors to be involved with. And the quality of the minds in there is such that you just keep getting better all the time, because everyone's trying to push each other on, which I think is the most beneficial piece as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think before I was in the network, you're on your own as a golf coach, and there's not many people there to help, because no one really has a way of organizing the information of hitting a golf ball and systematically doing it in a way until I came into the system. And obviously I met you and met other guys in the network, which has been fantastic. And like you say, in the conversations that everyone has day to day on the Facebook group and things like that, it's different to, I'd imagine, any network instructors in the world. Kind of on the same level, not quite the same level as Golf Tech. I guess we obviously both work at Golf Tech, and we have our coaches in Golf Tech that we work with. But I think Stack and Tilt is maybe just that's sort of next level, if you like, in terms of the help that you get from other instructors. So it certainly helped me a lot. So in terms of advice to new coaches out there that are just starting out coaching, they may have just gone through their PGA, what would you suggest would be the first sort of step if they wanted to become a Stack and Tilt instructor and learn the system? What would you suggest to do? Because it's a question that gets asked to me quite a lot.
I would try and seek out a Stack and Tilt authorized instructor that's near them geographically if they can, and contact them and ask to go and spend time watching them coach and shadow.
Yeah. I
would absolutely recommend that everyone would start out reading the book. I think it's a really good place to start. And then, the DVD series that they did 8 or 9 years ago now. I mean, this Stack and Tilt 2.0 DVD series is still head and shoulders above any instructional DVD that exists this day. And we're talking 9 years down the road. There is nothing that comes close to it in terms of the information that's in those DVDs. I think they're thorough. They are maybe a little bit complex for the standard golfer at times, potentially, but for a golf coach looking to get into the system and understand what it's about, those DVDs are phenomenal. So DVDs, book, try and find an instructor that's close to you. And if you can't find someone close to you, there's forums online, the Stack and Tilt open page. You can ask some questions, and of course, reach out to us individually if people want to start. I mean, I'm more than happy to help guys online if they want to get started. So yeah, that would be my recommendation.
Yeah. So the DVDs that Rob's referring to, I think you can buy those and download them online, but also you can go on to sign up to the Stack and Tilt Online Academy. And if you sign up on there, I think you get access to those DVDs as well. So it's definitely worth doing. So what advice would you give to amateur golfers that are looking to improve their golf and they're not sure whether Stack and Tilt will help them?
That's a good question. I mean, I always find that quite funny. Stack and Tilt, will it help them? Will it not help them? I think it's a big question because it depends how you define Stack and Tilt. Okay, so I'm going to say, if you think that hitting the ball more solidly, hitting it far, and hitting it with some control of the direction that you hit it isn't for you, then you probably shouldn't be playing golf. So I'm going to say that Stack and Tilt will help everybody. Okay.
Yeah.
Having said that, I think, people they come up against either very kind of vague instruction with regards to Stack and Tilt. They maybe stumble across it online. They've got somebody who's not necessarily authorized talking about it, so doesn't really understand it. They maybe read the book for themselves and interpret a piece of it not quite right. So my recommendation would 100% be to start with trying to find an instructor, an authorized instructor who's close to you geographically. That would be the first place to start. Secondly, good Stack and Tilt content online would be your stuff. I'm certainly I might just drop in and say my stuff if people want to watch my stuff on YouTube.
It should be linked in the description. I've put your channel on there. So definitely watch Rob. You've done a series recently on the P system. You've done some videos on the putting. What else have you done recently? Anything?
I did the draw every ball series. I've done a few pieces lately. I mean, there's some get the information from guys who know what they're talking about. That would be Nick, myself, Darren Hopwood is a good YouTube channel to follow. I'm just trying to think of the other people on YouTube who do a really good job. They're in our system. The problem is a lot of the time the people who cover Stack and Tilt and do a video on it and talk about it aren't qualified to talk about it, but they might have 300,000 subscribers. So then that's going to get a lot of exposure. So yeah, try and find the good resource is someone who's in the system.
Right.
Do we lose it? Are we back on?
I think it's connecting back in. It says it's setting up.
We're back, I think.
Yeah, I think we're back. Yeah.
Well, I can only see you on YouTube.
It's all right. I've got you.
Okay.
Sorry, guys. We just lost you there for a second, but we're back on. So I had a few questions that I get asked quite a lot, and one of them that always gets asked to me is Stack and Tilt bad for your back? And I try and answer people, but it's very difficult to answer just messaging on YouTube. But I thought you'll be a great person to answer this question. So if someone said to you, Stack and Tilt's bad for your back, what would your argument be, Rob?
I would say that all of the pieces prescribed in the Stack and Tilt swing, range of motion, a very natural range of motion. So it's false. The extending out of the forward bend on the backswing and extending out the forward bend on the follow through places the lower back in the least amount of stress, not the most.
Yeah.
Releasing the trowel knee on the backswing and turning the hips reduces the amount of stress on the hips and the lower part of the spine. That would be the complete opposite of trying to keep your lower body resisted or that trowel knee flexed, which is a model that some people prescribe. So I would say that Stack and Tilt is the easiest swing for your back. There is no other swing out there that is easier on your back or your joints in general, because all of the joints, all of the way the swing is designed is for each segment and each joint to move within its prescribed range of motion. We're not trying to take a knee joint, which is a flexion extension joint, and try to resist it and put it into this cast where you can't move. So it's nonsense. It's the typical nonsense that's spouted from people who've got an ulterior motive in terms of continuing to prescribe something that they've had to teach or been teaching for a number of years. They've got a vested interest in making sure that stack and tilt isn't widely accepted, because then they're going to have to stand up and say, well, their member's going to say to them, hang on a minute, you've been telling me to keep my back leg flexed for the last 10 years, and now you're telling me I've got to straighten it. That's a difficult position to be in when you've probably taken a few $1,000s off that person, and you're going to have to, it's a difficult conversation to have. So it's much easier to continue to drink the Kool-Aid and pretend that that things are, the status quo doesn't change. You can see that it's changing. If anyone's following golf instruction in any way, shape or form, the term turning centered, a centered pivot now is considered normal, right? As everyone is saying, oh, no, you should stay centered. It's accepted now, it's standard. Whereas it used to be, you have to shift, you have to shift to the right. Now they're saying, well, no, you don't have to shift to the right. You can stay centered. Well, yeah, that's right. We've been saying that for years.
I think it's a difficult subject when you talk about the weight, the mass, and the pressure, because obviously they're different things. I think a lot of people that would argue, they would say, you keep your mass centered, but there's still pressure moving to the right. I know when you have force plates, that any golfer that makes a golf swing, there's going to be some pressure moving to the right because of the weight of the club and your arms moving to the right in the backswing. So there is essentially some weight moving to the right in the backswing because of just the way you swing. But the feel of that is obviously quite important. And I think a lot of amateur golfers, they exaggerate someone telling them they're feeling that pressure, and they actually start to sway off the golf ball. I know working at GolfTech and using the motion numbers that we have, I think one of the ones I use the most is the sway numbers and how much the body sways from side to side. I've done a lot of videos on the movement of the body, and I still get a lot of golfers coming into the studio, and I'm sure you do as well, that still get those sway numbers that are moving away from the target or not towards the target enough. And I think that's a massive bearing on controlling the low point and how much the player can turn, and the swing path that they swing on as well. I think the more you essentially shift to your right, the more your swing becomes more upright, the harder it is to make a turn. So I think it just hopefully that term of shifting to the right will go away from golf coaching, but it's still around, I think.
Oh yeah, it is still around. No, you're right. It's still, and particularly, I guess, with the force plate kind of crowd now as well, describing how you have to shift the pressure. And at the end of the day, your job, my job, what we do day in, day out is try to help regular golfers improve and enjoy the game a bit more. For the most part, that means improving the quality of their ball striking. And for the most part, that just means helping them get their low point far enough forward. I mean, it's pretty simple stuff. And do you need to shift your weight to do that? Do you need to shift your pressure to do that? No, you don't. And most golfers, the problem with a lot of the golf research and golf science that's going on is the studies are being done on the top 1% of the top 1%. You've got phenomenal athletes who would make anything work. I'm a fairly skilled golfer. I could stand on my back foot and hit the ball off the ground and probably make a fairly good fist of it. But the majority of people standing on the mat in front of me and you they don't have that years of beating balls and have that skill. Yeah. So they need as much help as possible. Why would you tell someone to kind of start shifting backwards and forwards under the idea that it's going to create a little bit more speed or power when it's going to completely ruin the chances of them making good contact?
Yeah, I would say I've had a lot of success at GolfTech because you've got the 3D motion, which definitely really helps my coaching. And the beginning golfers that start out and they learn through GolfTech, they learn the stack and tilt system. I think I see massive improvements with beginners. And I think the entry level into golf becomes a lot easier for people, and they can start to enjoy it a lot more because they're hitting the ball better. I think that's one of the biggest things I've noticed as part of the network, is helping the beginning golfers start somewhere and learning that actually the stance is important and the grip's important, but actually hitting the ground in the same spot is obviously the most important fundamental of playing good golf. And I think if you can get a beginner golfer to do that. I think that obviously helps them their entry level into the sport, and hopefully they enjoy it more, which ultimately is what we want golfers to do: enjoy it and keep playing.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's a great point on beginner golfers and generally just higher handicap golfers. They need something that helps them hit the ball more consistently, more solidly, quickly. Yeah. And I've not come across anything that does that faster than stack and tilt fundamentals and the basic movements. There's nothing else out there that's close.
No. Okay, man. So I think we should go through some of these questions. I know if you can see the chat here.
I can see it, yeah.
You can see it? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So if we scroll to the top here, we've got Gala Tolik. Hello. Regarding the saying that upper body begins to slow down, that the lever is released. Please describe how to see and practice with slowed down shoulders prior impact. Thanks. Not sure what he's trying to say there. Did you get the gist of that, Rob?
Body begins to slow down, that the levers release. I think maybe that's like getting the left arm off the body. I think the best drill I've got for releasing the levers and sequencing the levers would be the hit hard, stop quick drill.
Yeah.
So that would be to stand. If you go on to, if you want to see a video on this, there's an old one I did years ago when I was in Portugal. If you look on my channel for a video, it's titled Arms Straight. I think I called it, or Hit Hard, Stop Quick. You basically set up to hit a full shot. You're going to make a full backswing. You're going to hit the ball, but you're going to try and stop as quickly as you can after impact.
Yeah.
You're going to swing as fast as you can. You're going to hit as full shot as possible, but you're going to stop, as quickly, this far maybe after impact. You're going to try and stop as quickly as you can. That's a great drill for learning how to release the levers.
I think I remember doing the stack and tilt camp and speaking to Nate about this, and he was saying that he learned the slam drill. That's what Mike calls it, apparently.
Yeah, I remember that.
You would grab like an 8 or a 9-iron or a wedge and just literally hit the ball and stop. So I think that's a really good drill.
Yeah, that's a good one. It's all right. Air conditioning stopped working.
Okay, great question here. Couple more down. Trying to transition from a flip release to more flying wedge release. How to feel as much power, not just like holding off release. So how can that golfer still maintain the flying wedge, but also still create power, not lose power?
I think the slam drill again, or the one I just prescribed, like the hit hard, stop quick drill, is another good one for that. Yeah. Understanding that flying wedge release. I mean, the flying wedge drill, keeping the right wrist bent back a bit longer, you shouldn't lose the power because the power is still coming out. So I'm not saying, well, the flying wedge drill isn't to say that you just keep this wrist extended like this and just keep going. The wrist is moving towards flexion. You're trying to change the timing of when it moves to flexion. So you should still get the release, but it just happens later if you're trying to maintain the flying wedge. And the flying wedge would just help you to maintain the radius of the swing better, which often helps you to hit the ground a little bit further forward. So try that hit hard, stop quick drill again, because that keeps the flying wedge intact at impact. But as you stop, it helps you to release the levers just into that first part of the downswing, follow through, sorry.
Yeah, I think a lot of people that sort of practice that flying wedge drill, I think obviously it's very easy to leave the face open. I think a lot of people that sort of practice that, and that could be again down to your wrist bends in the downswing. I think if you have the face open, it's very difficult to practice the flying wedge drill and hit the ball straight. It's likely to go right. So I would say also check the club face in the downswing. Make sure it's not too open if you're struggling with pushing the ball or slicing it.
Yeah, very good. Very true.
Sean, having trouble with shoulder tilt. My shoulders tend to level out at the top of my backswing. Any drills to fix this?
Yeah, I would. I'd start by just making sure, Sean, that you understand the tilt comes from more than just the shoulders. So it's not just the shoulders that are tilting, the hips need to tilt. And in order for those to tilt, the knees should be changing flex. So just check that when you're making a backswing, your knees are changing flex. That will help your hips to tilt, and that will make it easier for your shoulders to tilt. Drill for that. I haven't got much space here, but I'd probably just, I would put sticks across my shoulder. I'd probably put an alignment stick through my belt. I don't know how much space I've got here. Give me a sec. So, alignment stick through the belt loops, alignment stick across your chest. Make sure your feet are turned out at 20, 30 degrees, both left foot, right foot. And then as you swing back, move this stick down towards the ground. And you want to also be checking that my hips are tilted. So this stick is not level, it's more tilted. Okay?
You would expect the hip tilt to be around 10 or 12 degrees, and the shoulders about 35 degrees to 40 degrees tilted. So there'll be more tilt to the shoulders, obviously.
There's definitely more here than there is here, but this should not be level, right?
Yeah.
Because if you can't see my knees at this point, but as I lose my tilts, my knee flex gets more even, rather than when I tilt properly, the change in knee flex is greater.
Yeah.
So just understand that the tilt comes from more than just the shoulders.
Yeah, good point, Rob. I like that. I think a lot of people that don't tilt the shoulders enough, they tend to move the head as well. That can happen. So sort of fixing your head against a wall or a fixed point can help with just trying to get the motion of keeping the head stable, not moving it side to side. So I think head on the wheel drill is good for that one.
Yeah, and sometimes the feeling that a golfer needs, to Sean's specific point there about leveling out, in reality, that's his head coming up. So in order to maintain some kind of stability and inclination to the ground, he's someone who might need to feel like his head goes down towards the ground.
Yeah.
So that we achieve that like inclination, stability. You never want someone's head to go towards the ground. But in order for him to maintain some sort of stability, you might need him to feel that.
A good point about it's not just the shoulders, it's also the hips as well, but also the head as well. The head can tilt, the eyes can tilt. If you look at a lot of the best golfers as they set up and get to the top of the backswing, that if you look at their cap, it will tilt, their eyes tilt. So the head tilts, the shoulders tilt, and the hips tilt.
Yeah.
Throughout the course of the swing. So next question, Stephen Fisher. Hi guys, why has S&T received such a bad press over the recent years?
I think there's a number of factors. I think I've already touched on the fact that I think there's a few things in there that fly in the face of what was considered the conventional swing. And there's a lot of people who've got a vested interest in the conventional swing or the resistance model. So they have to be seen to sort of fight their corner, and in doing so are going to try and say bad things about it so people don't buy into it. I also think the original article in Golf Digest many years ago pictured a lot of extreme practice swing feels, and that was misunderstood. So guys literally sort of tilting towards the target, moving their head towards the target on the backswing, was a feeling that they gave to players. And Aaron Baddeley was the poster child at that time for stack and tilt. And that was misunderstood, and then that was used as ammunition against stack and tilt to say, oh, this is ridiculous, you don't do this. And so, I mean, I think there's the main reasons. I also think when you label it and give it a name, it's so easy to attack a name rather than an individual. So I think but it's clearly defined. I think that's another reason what makes it so great is that it's clearly defined, and everyone else's pattern or their system is is not clearly defined and it's vague. It may not be vague in their head, but they've not written it down, and no one else can then really critique it, because if you've not pinned your kind of masked, what am I trying to say? You've stuck your kind of, this is what I do, right?
Yeah.
You're saying, this is me, this is what I do. It's very easy then for that to be pulled down. Whereas if you never really quite commit to anything specific, and if you continue to be nice and vague about stuff, then you can kind of hide behind any mask you wish, and you can change masks frequently and not really get pulled up for it.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I'd say the system evolves as well. The stack and tilt system does evolve a little bit. It does. The basics stay the same, but the detail increases, and the level that Andy, certainly watching Andy's presentations, they change slightly every year, and the detail that he goes into.
Yeah.
So, but generally it's along the same sort of systematic way of coaching. So Liz says hi. Hi, Liz. Liz works with Ayumi.
Early morning for you in California. I saw you join the Golf Tech call right at the end, which was great to see. So fabulous to see you. I think you're doing great.
She's doing really good. I know she's been practicing in the off time as well. I saw her. I think she had a grid set up at home on her mat, which was great.
My favorite student in the whole world is Liz.
Terry, hi guys. Martin, who's joined us from Zoom, Golf Tech Zoom, just a minute ago. Hand path through impact. I like to feel that my hands pass close to my legs. Is that a good feeling to have?
Maybe. That's a really subjective question, Martin. It's a difficult one to say that's a good feeling for everybody. Some people need to feel like the hands move inwards more. Some people need to feel like the hands move more out. So that would be purely subjective and based on the student and based on their shot pattern, based on what they're kind of working on.
I know it's a good feeling for me, Rob. I know that.
And me. And it's a very good feeling for me.
But I think obviously, like going back to your point there, I think it does depend on the golfer. It depends what you're trying to achieve. Generally, making that move is going to move the path more left. So if you already swing across the ball, it may not be the best thing to do. I know certainly I've seen Martin swing. I'd say that's a good thing for him to think about. I
think that's what's really interesting sometimes, or ironic about the criticism that sometimes stack and tilt does receive. It's often pigeonholed into this idea that we teach everyone to do the same thing.
Yeah.
And if that was the case, then the answer to that question would be either yes or no. Like, oh, yes, Martin, that's correct. Everyone should do that. Or no, Martin, that's incorrect. Everyone should do X, whatever X happens to be. The fact that it's a system with answers for every single question out there that you'd ever need, and it's student dependent based on the shot they're trying to hit, makes it the most versatile swing system that exists versus the most sort of single swing mentality. So that irony always kind of sticks out for me, that people often criticize stack and tilt instructors for teaching one swing, whereas nothing could be further from the truth. And oftentimes the people who actually criticize us are the ones standing there teaching the same lesson over and over again.
Yeah, that's a good point, mate. Really good point. Ola from Goss Oak, England. Hi, Dad.
Hey, Mr. Taylor. It's not far from where I used to live.
Oh yeah, you're Stevenage, weren't you?
Goffs Oak's a bit posh though, a lot posher than Stevenage. Didn't David Beckham live in Goffs Oak?
I think it's Victoria's parents.
Oh, okay.
Actually, I think
I got a story there. Me and my wife were in, when we used to live in the UK, we went for a curry, like an Indian restaurant near Goffs Oak, near sort of Ware down the A10.
Yeah. And
we walked in and there was so many people in this night. It was really weird. And the Beckhams were in, the whole family, David, Victoria, the parents, all the kids. Bonkers. There's people asking for autographs and
crazy.
Sorry, that's my David Beckham story.
I know the in-laws, they live around the corner, so he's got a good little setup there. So Alan, I think he's commenting on your swing from back in the day. So
yeah,
I'd like to see that as well.
I'll send it to you on WhatsApp if you promise not to share it with the world.
John Williams, what swing did you learn as a child? Who is your mentor?
I wouldn't say that I learned any sort of particular swing. I mean, I had no real concept of golf mechanics when I was learning. I suppose as I began to develop my swing, I took some lessons from my first boss, Gary Parker, who's my head professional and was my original mentor in terms of just giving me advice on golf industry in general. And I watched, to my detriment, I guess, Faldo was my hero, and the way he could change his swing under Leadbetter would not really fit into what I think makes a good golf swing these days. So
yeah,
I did try all that resistance model stuff. You'll see that if this VHS swing ever makes the light of day, everyone will see what I was trying to do, which is pretty horrific. So yeah, I'm not sure I learned any particular swing. My mentor, in terms of my golf instruction, would definitely be Andy Plummer for sure.
Yeah, I think a lot of people would answer that the same way.
Yeah, I've been very fortunate to spend a lot of time with Andy over the years, and he messaged me earlier today as well. I've got to have someone of that. To have someone like that on the end of your phone that you can pick up and just chat to about golf stuff is really cool. I'm very grateful for that.
That's awesome. Okay, Dean, hello from Vancouver. 3.5.
Hello, Vancouver.
I'm making the change to S&T. Can you guys speak to any posture keys in order to help with creating the correct positions through the S&T swing? Speak to any posture keys.
Posture at P1, like setup. I would say as a preference, I like to see, again, there's not much room in this for me to stand up and show you, but I like to see sort of the back of the arm, the knee, and the ball of the foot more or less in a line in terms of balance point. So if you filmed yourself from down the line, you'd see the back of your armpit straight down to the knee, and then through the center of the ball of the foot.
Yeah.
In terms of actual posture, I think definite preference to being a little bit more protracted with the shoulders, so a little bit more forwards on the front of the torso versus trying to keep your shoulders back. So having a roundness to the spine, especially at the top, would be a preference. Making sure your neck's tilted far enough down that you're looking at the ball out of your central vision, rather than
I think that's a key one.
Up and looking out the bottom of the eye socket. There'd be some general ones that I'd look for.
Turn the feet out, turn the knees out would be.
Yeah, turn the knees out, good ones. Yeah.
Important. Yeah, the point there on the head is really key. I think I teach a lot of golfers that they come to me with the chin up like this, and almost it becomes part of their routine, right? They sit up to the ball, and the last thing they do is lift their chin up. And I think it makes it hard to get your focus on the golf ball, and it makes it very easy for you to start to move the head a lot more in the swing. I think that's quite a key one.
Yeah, I think that's a big misunderstanding in golf setup, how you should have your kind of head. I think a lot of people are told to keep their chin up because they're told that they then turn their shoulder underneath that and into that space.
Yeah.
Whereas
I think if you move the shoulder downwards enough, you can move the shoulder under the chin.
Yeah, definitely.
I think a lot of golfers are taught to turn more level with their shoulders, and if your chin's down, it's harder to do that.
Yeah.
Hello. Oh, was Ben Hogan's swing stack and tilt from Terry?
I don't think anybody swings it 100% like the model. So that question, whenever someone asks, is so-and-so stack and tilt, or is this person working, is this swing stack and tilt? Let's just take that question.
Yeah.
It really depends how you're defining what is stack and tilt. So are you saying, does it look 100% like the model? No, I don't think anybody does. But does it conform to the three fundamentals? Yes, of course.
Yeah.
All elite golfers do. Does he extend, tilt and turn during the backswing? Yes, of course. Does he swing his hands inwards? Yes. Does he have his weight forward when he hits the ball? Yes. Does he extend his spine on the follow through? Yes. So good golfers conform to most of that pattern, whilst zero people do it like as precisely as the model would say.
Yeah.
And that's the whole point of having a model, is that you have an expectation of what the swing would do. And then when it's not like that, you have an answer that fits as to what your expectation would be for the ball flight. So this part of the swing looks like this, and because it looks like this, it's going to produce this. If I wanted to change the outcome, how would I do that? Well, I know that this part of the swing doesn't conform with where it should be from a more neutral point of view. So we're going to move that piece and take it back more neutral. We're going to use the model and our expectation of what the swing should look like to help a player to improve. It's not about teaching everyone to swing, have a perfect stack and tilt swing. It's just not what it's about. It's not how we help people.
I think that's definitely a good point there, Rob. It's something that's misunderstood, in my opinion, that we teach everyone the same swing. And like you say, that every good golfer, they perform the key fundamentals of stack and tilt, the 10 words. And I think that's the point, being that we have a system to change, that every golfer will fit into the model somewhere. And and there's a way to change what they want to do in terms of the ball flight.
Yeah, the ball matters, right? What the ball does matters. I think that's it's an often overlooked part of golf research in recent times. Right? There's all this talk about creating ground pressure and shifting and doing all these different things with very little consideration for what the ball's doing. I think if you should always have that in mind when you're considering making a change to someone's technique. The golf ball is ultimately the judge of whether or not something is successful or not.
Yeah. Martin, Nick has done a series of 5 videos, 10 words. Very good. Scotty, huge thanks to all your videos. I've fully transitioned to stack and tilt and couldn't have done it without your videos, Nick. Thank you very much. Thanks, Scotty. Stan, hi Nick and Rob. I'm having a problem with flipping my wrist at impact. Any tips or drills to help me? It kind of goes back to that question we had earlier on, Rob, with the hit and stop drill. I don't know if you missed that, Stan, but Rob was describing that when you're the way to practice that would be to hit the ball hard and stop pretty quickly. Was the way to try and get rid of flipping the wrist at impact. Steve wanted to thank Nick for his videos. Most people will watch short videos. Anything too long will lose people. So I'm trying to cut the time down, Steve. I try not to do anything over 10 minutes anymore. Brandon, I hit the ball well using a traditional rotational swing, and I'm new to the concept of stack and tilt. What are the benefits of this approach compared to traditional rotational swing? Rob?
That's I mean, I don't know what the traditional rotational swing is that Brandon's referring to specifically. I will say that, the description of how the golfer moves in stack and tilt is there is a rotation, there is an extension, there is a tilt. But ultimately, the concept is built around the idea that we would maintain a stable axis from the front view. So if you're watching the golfer from face on, there's a stable axis, okay? And if you're watching the golfer from down the line, there's a stable inclination. So that's the concept. What's the benefits to this approach? Maintaining that axis both in the horizontal and vertical plane would improve and increase your chances of making more consistent contact, would be the first thing I'd say. So that's a benefit of staying centered, maintaining your inclination to the ground. You're more likely to bring that club back to a good low point control. Additionally, moving your body in the way that we would prescribe is less stressful on the joints. So it's going to spread the stress over your entire body, utilizing all the different joints and segments to take the strain, rather than overstressing or overstraining any one point of the body, which the resistance model, which may be the rotational model that you're talking about, I'm not sure, Brandon, but the resistance model, which is a golf swing that I'm familiar with, and I know it's still taught, places excessive stress and strain on specific parts of the body, namely the trail knee, the trail hip, the lower back. And because the stress is excessive in those joints, it puts extra strain and potential injury in those areas. So that's what I would say. I would say stack and tilt is a more, it's a safer or more stress equalizing swing. And it's also, I believe strongly that it's more consistent in terms of helping people hit the ball first and the ground second, or said another way, make better contact.
Yeah, I think for me, it certainly helped my speed as well. I know the stack and tilt system is really there to help people improve contact. Power is another key fundamental, and controlling the curve. But I think certainly if you allow your trail knee to straighten and turn your hips more and turn your shoulders more, you're going to swing the club more around your body, and you're going to swing it faster as well. So I think it helps with power as well.
Yeah, I think so. And I think again, the majority of golfers that are looking for help are regular recreational golfers who, if they learn to strike the ball more consistently, would by definition hit the ball further.
Yeah.
Just because they're going to hit the center of the face more often and get their ball speed up. I did
saw
a video.
Your video. I was about to say I saw your video on the driver.
I did a video yesterday about centered strike. I hit it 30 yards further just by hitting the center of the club face. Yeah. And that was only with a 100-mile-an-hour driver swing before you take the mickey. 100 mile an hour, there's plenty of amateur golfers that can swing at 100 mile an hour with the driver. And there's over 30 yards of distance just based on where you hit it on the face.
Yeah.
So, learning to make centered contact for me is way overlooked. And the quest for more speed, more club speed, is, I think, should be further down the list of golfers' priorities. Certainly the majority of golfers anyway.
Yeah, I agree. Steve, spend time with Andy and Mike over the years and wanted to say that they are the nicest guys, genuine. The way the industry treated them has been unfair and terrible. I agree, Steve. They're two of the nicest guys I've ever met, and Rob would agree as well.
100%.
Scotty, started with the book, great tool and learning. I agree, Scotty. I think a lot of people started their journey. I started my journey reading the book, and I still read it. It's by my bedside table. I read it a lot. It's always there. I'm making much more consistent contact since I've been employing S&T, but hitting a lot of pulls with irons. Ball starts towards target and ends up 10 to 30 yards left of target. Any ideas, Rob?
If they're just straight pulls, you could look at where the club face is aiming at setup, where the weight's positioned at setup. You could look at where the handle's located. Put the weight more forward, put the handle more forward. Hitting a lot of pulls. If they're straight pulls, that would suggest that the club path is still out to in, which would suggest there's something not quite right somewhere earlier in the chain. Just check you're not lifting your arms too much. Put a tee or a glove under your trail arm and hold it against your torso and swing back. That helps to keep the hand path deep enough. There's a few ideas for you.
Thanks, Rob. Stack and tilt helped my back. I think he was obviously commenting when we were talking about the back issue there. Horace Douglas. I think Horace knows Dave Tarashi, who's in the network.
Cool.
It's nice to hear from him. The S&T is becoming the standard swing if you watch golf of any kind.
Standard.
Steve, I think, was replying to someone in the chat there about if you want a new golf swing, you have to break the habit of being yourself and reinvent a new swing and a new swing. I think certainly everyone has their swing, if you like. I think I've had experience of changing people's swings. I think if you train in the right way, practice in the right way, and get the right information, I think it's doable. You can change your swing even if you've got habits. I know I've changed my swing. I did a video recently. The changes I made, they may be subtle to some people's eyes, but to me, they're quite a lot of changes I've made. So I think you can do it. I think if you practice in the right environment and the right tools and get the right information, I think you can do it. can you guys talk about the turn 90 degrees? It helps to hit the ball longer with no effort. So I think Horace is talking about the backswing. I'm guessing he's talking about the 90 degree with the shoulder turn, Rob. So I'd say that certainly when you're talking about 90 degree rotation in the shoulders, I think you have to say that the rotation comes from other parts of the body as well. It's not just the shoulders. I think if you don't change your knee flex, if you don't turn your hips, it's going to be very difficult to turn your shoulders 90 degrees. I think if you just stand upright and try and turn your shoulders, you can only probably turn them about 30 degrees. So to get to that 90 degrees, it's certainly, you have to have other movements going on in the swing. And
I think most people would be sitting in a chair watching this. You can just get them to sit there and stick their finger out straight like this. Dr. Bush did this in the anatomy class, which I thought was great. If you're sitting down in a chair and you just try to turn your shoulders as far as you can, you're going to get to a point fairly quickly, 30 or 40 degrees, depending on your flexibility and your range of motion. That's as far as you can turn your shoulders without some help, as you're saying, from the hips and from the knees.
Unless you're in a swivel chair, Rob.
Unless you're in a swivel chair, yeah. I think understanding that the turn isn't just in the shoulders, comes from the hips and the knees as well, is important. And
also there's a tilting and an extending part of that as well, which helps you turn. So I think you in the stack and tilt system, I've done a lot of videos on it. It's not just rotation, it's also side bending and extension of the spine as well, which helps you turn. Rodney, so true, Steve. I've been utilizing a lot of self video during quarantine to help undo years of ingrained bad habits. Not easy, you can't argue with video. Yeah, so going back to a point, I think, if you practice in the right way, you certainly can change your swing if you practice the right thing. Megan, I think Megan was on the Golf Tech chat, Rob.
Yeah, Megan's been messaging me a lot on the Facebook group of the Golf Tech, which is great. How does it suggest to initiate the downswing? So again, it could be very player dependent based on their pattern and what they need more of or less of. I think as a standard sort of model answer, it would be from the ground up. It would be sort of moving the left knee, the left hip, and sliding the lower body towards the target would be the first piece. But the blending of how much slide versus turn versus tilt versus extension is very player specific, depending on what they do, too much of or not enough of in the first place.
Yeah, there's definitely a combination of things happening.
There are.
Going, as you put there, the knees. I think I certainly with my swing, by the time I get to the top of the backswing, I've already started to flex my right knee again, because my right knee almost straightens. By the time I get to 3/4 of the way back in the backswing, it's already starting to regain flex before I've even made the top of the backswing. So, Brandon, is the S&T taught at all Golf Tech facilities?
I think what Golf Tech's done is measured what the best players do using their motion measurement. They've got a range in which PGA Tour players, if you like, is the green range that the Golf Tech teaching works within, and all of those green movements would conform with what Stack and Tilt prescribes. So
yeah, good answer.
That's hopefully answers that question.
Do you need to change lie angle on club, like Jim Hardy's one plane swing needs flat lie angle on club?
No, you need to find a lie angle that's right for you.
Yeah, I think everyone's different.
I wouldn't say there's a specific lie angle change that's necessary to make this swing.
Rob is right. I know you're always right, Rob, about Stack and Tilt. The name does not give it justice. Liz says thanks. Martin says thanks. Robin, I was Stack and Tilt for 4 or 5 years, having lessons in the UK with Sam. Love the idea of the system, then started to get injuries. Is this unusual? I'm 53 years young with a bad back. I think certainly the golf swing it's puts strain on the body, whether you're having Stack and Tilt lessons or normal conventional lessons. All I would say is that the Stack and Tilt system does make it easier on the back. So I think it's a tough question to answer because I think everyone's different. I know certainly the guys that Andy and Mike have worked with over the years, I don't think any one of those players have missed a tournament because of injury.
Yeah, and I would say Sam is one of the best in the world.
Yeah, I agree.
As far as stack and tilt system's concerned, so you're certainly getting. You've got a great instructor there. I'm sure between you'll be able to work around some of the injury issues. It's like Nick says, turning rotational sport on an angle isn't really good for your body, regardless of the system that you apply. I would say that the stack and tilt system is probably the least stressful on the joints, but there's still a stress on the joints. And we're all individuals in the sense we have, different ranges of motion. We have potentially different weak points through a whole number of different reasons why we may have been injured previously. So, it's hard to blame an injury on a swing of any particular type, I think.
Yeah. Rob, do you have an opinion on the research done by Sasho McKenzie and Dr. Kwan with regards to club kinetics and GRF? And does this research have any implications with the stack and tilt pattern? The ground forces?
Yeah. I think I met Dr. Kwan maybe 5 or 6 years ago when he first got into golf science, and he did we were at a conference in Madrid. He was presenting a conference in Madrid, and I was there with Andy and a few others. I would say that what I've seen of the golf science community and the ground reaction force stuff, it is exclusively geared towards creating more speed. And I know the reason that they did that was because it's the lowest hanging fruit. It's the easiest thing to measure.
Yeah.
So in golf, they're really studying how to swing faster. We know as golf instructors who teach real golfers that golf is more than just swinging fast. Golf is about controlling the low point, swinging fast enough to create speed to play the course, and controlling the curve or the direction of your ball. They're certainly trying to figure out how to swing fast. The question I've always had from day one and continue to have is, what does that really mean for the golfer in terms of their performance? And there's really no great answer for that I've seen yet. More recently, there's been some talk about starting to study rate of closure, which would be interesting. But yeah, that's my take on it. I think it's interesting as a golf professional and a golf instructor. I'm keen to see what these guys are doing. How much practical application does it have for me on the lesson tee at the moment? Very little would be my answer.
Yeah.
But I appreciate what they're trying to do.
Yeah.
And I think it's getting better.
Where is Mike Bennett these days?
I saw a video of Mike the other day, actually. I think he's still in Florida, still playing golf, still teaching.
I'm sure he's playing and teaching a lot.
Yeah.
Mark, thanks for name checking Darren Hopwood. I've had many pro lessons, some good, some bad, but never a S&T. He's fairly local, will be worth 30 quid when the lockdown's over. So just a plug there for Darren Hopwood. Search him on YouTube. He's done some great stuff.
Darren is one of the best, without a shadow of a doubt.
Yeah, someone messaged me the other day, actually. I can't remember what part of the UK they were from, but they were somewhere up north somewhere. And I mentioned Darren. I think, yeah, he's one of the best. Megan, again, does ball position change in S&T compared to conventional teaching? I think, again, what I would say with the stack and tilt system is there's a grid and there is a system in place. And I think it does, again, come down to the individual, but it's important to note that moving the ball in a different place in your stance is going to affect the club path. It can affect the angle of attack as well. So I'd say it's down to the individual to a certain degree. We always say that the ball position should be about 3 balls inside of the left shoulder. I think a lot of people get confused with ball position because they judge it by the middle of their stance and their feet. And I think if you just have the ball in the middle of your stance could be wider with different clubs. And I think that's where it gets a little bit confusion. but I'd always have the ball 2 to 3 balls back behind the left shoulder for sort of a standard shot. But the point being that there's a grid and there's a system in place if you want to move it and shape the ball in a certain way.
Yeah, I think having a basic understanding of the grid, the picture of the grid, would help. If you've not seen that grid, I would encourage you to find someone who's got it. And I haven't got it to hand. But we have it down on the mat in all of our GolfTech bays in Singapore.
I think if anyone's watched a lot of my videos, the grid's always somewhere.
Do you mind? Can I share my screen, Nick? Is it all right?
Yeah. I was going to say, I was going to look on my iPad, but if you can share your screen, mate, that's even better.
How do I do that? Let's have a look. Here we go. Can you see that?
I can. Yeah.
All right. So that diagram there is just a basic sort of grid that we would have on the ground, which is part of helping a golfer set up, first of all, in a way that's familiar to them, so they can learn to set up in a similar way each time. But just notice the sort of different, we call these vertical white lines where the shaft is. As those vertical lines change, as the ball position changes on the grid, it would change the path of the swing. It would alter the direction the swing was going. So you definitely change ball position from club to club, but you also change ball position with the same club if you're trying to hit a different shot. That can sound confusing, but it's really not. It's just versatile, gives you different options. I need to stop sharing my screen. How do I do that? Hang on a minute, mate.
That's all right. You're not actually sharing it on YouTube now, I don't think.
Okay, I'll stop.
I could look at the grid all day there.
We're back to normal. There we go.
Back to normal, yeah.
To start with, depending on the level of golfer, I'd start with a basic standard ball position. But as someone's skill increases and they want to start being more versatile with the shot they're trying to hit, then I'd definitely start explaining how the grid gives them a chance to just change their ball flight just to set up.
Okay, Brandon, I learned S&T from YouTube golf instructor Tom Segutu. I actually started watching him for entertainment rather than golf instruction, but the concepts he shared made sense. So yeah, Tom is sort of blown up on YouTube in recent weeks. He plays the guitar and he says a lot of good stuff. So I'd certainly recommend watching Tom. I've sent him a few messages recently. He's a good lad.
Yeah.
Another guy I had lessons with Sam, and which is great. I've been turning to golf now after 6 years. I had this guy that had no S&T instructors within 1,000 kilometers of Calgary. So Don, you can get in touch with some of the guys on the Stack and Tilt Academy page. Certainly worth signing up to the website. You can get some online lessons there as well. So I'd definitely suggest doing that if there's no Stack and Tilt instructors in your area. Maybe watch the DVDs, read the book. Brandon's replying to your answer earlier, Rob. So
cool.
Your answer was great.
Resistance swing. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Okay.
Robin, what I like about Sam was he wasn't afraid to take your club and hit the shot.
It's got a great swing.
Yeah.
Sam's got a great swing.
He has, yeah. Yeah, I've seen him hit balls.
It's
I think that's quite important, right? If you're having lessons with someone that they can actually demonstrate, that's one of the great things that Mike does, is he can hit all the shots, and sometimes better than the tour players.
Yeah. Megan, did you miss that question from Megan there?
Oh, yeah. Do I want my arms completely straight or slightly bent? And I believe earlier you mentioned something about the knees pointing outward.
Yeah, so the toes would be turned out, both feet would turn out, and then the knees would also be matching that. So you wouldn't have your knees pinched in, you'd have your knees turned outwards to match your feet. As far as the arms are concerned, you don't want them completely rock solid straight. The right arm should be soft and slightly flexed.
Yeah.
So yeah, not completely straight would be my answer to that.
Yeah. Okay.
Having said that, most golfers' arms are too soft when they swing, but at setup, I wouldn't have them so close together. There'd be space, and the right arm would be slightly flexed.
Yeah. Very good video on your swing change. Thank you. What's the name of the Facebook group? So I think there is a general Stack and Tilt Facebook page, Rob, isn't there? For people to...
Yeah, it's the Stack and Tilt public page. If you if you go to Facebook, it's a big group. It's got about, I don't know, maybe 7,000 or 8,000 people in it, I think. Yeah, you just ask to be let in, and we'll let you in.
Rodney, golf is hard on the back period. Ian, that's Ian Chan, our friend Ian.
Hey Ian, good to see you. Thanks for joining.
I think the last game of golf I played was with Ian, just before we were on circuit breaker here in Singapore. We played Sentosa. So that was seems a long time ago now, Ian.
Nice.
Sorry, mate. I'm sorry keeping you so long. Megan, in the S&T book, they mentioned stretching the back towards the target at the top of the swing. What exactly does that look like? I think you've got a bit more space there, Rob, if you just want to show us that, about the top of the backswing, the extension of the back.
Yeah. So when you set up, we set up in forward bend. So we've got our spine tilted down towards the ground. And if we were to swing back and maintain that forward bend or not extend like the book suggests, if we didn't do what the book suggests as we turn back, we keep that forward bend. So our head would move away from the target. The book's prescribing that you extend during the backswing. And when you blend that with the turning and the tilting, you get, you'd find that instead of being flexed, you'd be extended like this. So your head would stay centered effectively. My spine is now extended to sort of 0 degrees. So I start bent forwards, and by the time I get to the top of the swing, I've extended whilst tilting to the left. So the extension is really just the centered shoulder turn. So if your head was moving to the right on the backswing, you wouldn't be doing enough extension. And if your head moved to the left on the backswing, you'd be doing too much extension. So it's a way of just managing the amount that your spine is extending.
Yeah, you'd want the head to stay in position. You wouldn't, like Rob says, you wouldn't want to overdo it either and sort of extend too much to the left. So you'd want the head to stay in position, but the majority of golfers that we see, they don't extend enough in the backswing. And when you look at the best golfers in the world, we measure it at Golf Tech, the average forward bend at the top of the backswing is 0, which means that, as Rob explained there, another way to explain that would be if you had something coming out of your sternum here at the top of the backswing, that would point level or horizontal to the ground. And that would be the correct amount of extension, I guess. It would be 0 or horizontal. Hi there. I tend to pull the ball a bit. If S&T promotes the weight on the lead foot, how could I avoid sending the ball further to the left? Many thanks. So I would say with that question, Javier, the weight at setup is to the left. And the idea of that is that we want the weight there at impact. The best golfers have their weight on the left at impact. So setting up with a little bit of weight on the left at setup will help with that. The ball's obviously going to react to what the club face does. So I'd say that's something to do with the club face that makes the ball go left, not necessarily having the weight on the left. I think having the weight on the left will help you strike the ground further forward, make better contact, and it would probably help you swing more into out as well. Slide hits. Martin's got to go. Thanks again, guys. Thank you guys for promoting and teaching S&T. Focus on hitting ground after the ball is a game changer. We appreciate all of the great content on YouTube. Jason, thanks, mate.
Thank you,
I think we'll leave it on the positive note there, Rob. I appreciate the time. I know it's late here in Singapore. We've been online for a few hours now.
That's the quickest 90 minutes of my life. That was brilliant.
Yeah, it's good, mate. It's good to chat with you. It'd be good to get you on again, I think. And because there seems to be a lot of questions and you can answer them in a different way and probably in a better way than I can. So I really appreciate you coming on. I just have to say thanks, Rob. He's been a great help to me in my career. I certainly wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for Rob. So thanks, mate.
Welcome. Proud to have you on the team. I wouldn't want it any other way.
Awesome. And hopefully I'll see you again soon, mate.
Yeah, it'd be nice. Be nice to see you face to face rather than through a computer screen.
Yeah, we need to get our next game of golf sorted out as well.
Yeah, we should. We get it filmed. There's plenty of fun games on your channel.
Yeah, if anyone's bored, maybe watch out some of the videos that me and Rob have done. We've done some good course vlogs over the last few months, so which has been good.
It's been fun. Yeah, hopefully not much longer, mate. We'll be back to work.
Hopefully, mate. I'm looking forward to going back to work. So thanks, guys. We're going to check out now. See you again soon. Cheers, Rob.